Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It's March 22nd. This will be our chart lesson for today, and it was really kind of a quiet day today. Um, you know, it was another range day for the most part, although we really traded up for most of the day. Very similar to yesterday, really. Um, Most of the price action were within the two dashed lines here early on. Um, what I looked at, once we started going higher here, once we broke out here, and notice we almost always come back and test these breakout areas, and notice how we came back and tested it before we went higher. But normally what I will do is you normally want to, first you would, the first measurement I'm going to make is this one right here, and I'm going to look for prices to maybe make that measured move right there. But if we keep going higher, I'm going to measure from the low down here up to that midpoint. This is really the midpoint where we were swinging on both sides most of the day. And then I will measure that and move that up, and you can see where that hit, and nothing closed above that. We did push above it for a couple of ticks here and there, but nothing closed above it. So it's two different ways. But normally the more accurate way is actually where your two strongest, where your midpoint is and where your strongest point of your lows are at. That's generally going to find you your highs. But when we just pushed right on through that, we're really a little bit, with relative ease. Then you got to assume that hey, uh, there's another target up here somewhere that people are looking at, and so then I would just measure this. And if we went higher than that, you might even measure. Of course, there's another way to measure it is measure from there to there, and then from here to here. And you can see we did turn down on that one, so that's another reason that you needed to be careful right in here. We'll talk about this little area when we get to it in a minute. So, but yeah, that's a perfect measured move for the most part right there. And then we sold off. So um, this was a little bit confusing. Originally, I had this right here, and it may still be there, but that would have made it very tempting to try to. You don't have a very good signal bar there. Is one thing, and it's kind of sideways. So that's one way to skip that. One reason to skip that. But generally, when you bounce off that trend line, it's a little tempting to go long. But notice how we shot right through the EMA. There's a couple of different things. We'll talk about that when we get to it. Let me back out and talk about the trades. There's not a lot of trades today. It's kind of a relatively quiet day, as somebody else described it. That sent me an email earlier. So I would agree with that. It's a little bit quiet. So, um, but anyway, let's talk about the trades. First trade I saw is this short right here off the trend line. And let me explain this one. Um, there's resistance running right across there. You can see the little double top and all. And it's just a little failed break higher. But the interesting part is when it failed and turned down, it's right off the EMA. This was actually supposed to be green, and forgot to change it. If you had a nice signal bar here, I would say it would be red, but it's a failed break higher above this little double, almost triple top really. But you get more of a neutral signal bar there. So what I would do is wait for this bar to break below, especially when they're all turning down right off that trend line. I would let it break lower and either drop a limit order maybe right at the low of this bar. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Right at the low of this bar, or maybe a tick back in it, and just let it break lower, then drop your limit order and see if it'll come back. And it would have filled you all the way within two, looks like two, maybe three ticks back into that bar. You might have gotten filled, and then the bottom just drops out of it. And notice what happens. It bounces along this previous kind of support here rather than making it down to the trend channel side. So that's telling you that something's going on there. And since you came up short here, you got to be real careful about going short off this trend line. And notice this little channel working up. So as nice as that bar looks right off that trend line, There's plenty of reasons to say, hey, I'm not getting trapped here, and just kind of sit tight and see what happens. And of course, it does bounce, and you get a second entry here, and you do get a close outside. So if you make a new high here, you can consider going short there on a second entry short, but it kind of goes sideways. You still got three relatively there's three bars there, and one of them's a doji, so you got to be careful about that. But this one's relatively bearish. This one's relatively bearish, and they might even be bearish on yours. So you could consider going short there. It's a little bit aggressive. Um, I would prefer to wait on the second entry off, counting off the high, which that comes here, and then you could, if it went above first and then turned down, but it didn't go out all in the same bar, so I'd be hesitant to go short there. Um, I'd wait and see if you don't get another entry, and guess what? You get a failed second entry long right here with a little small bar, only 3 ticks, so it's real low risk. And notice how you pushed on through the EMA and pulled back. That's what when you're reversing directions, that's kind of what it does. And you can tell they trapped some longs because look at it fail real fast. And quick, easy move. And now you got your break, 2 measured legs to a new low. You got 1 leg down, pull back, second leg down, and a nice bullish bar right off those lows again. So I like going long, trying to just ride that back to the EMA, maybe further. It pulls back, and so you could have gotten, if you didn't just trust your order and leave it there, you might have gotten stopped out of that one. But I wouldn't add back on there, even though it took off like a rocket. I definitely wouldn't add on there. I would wait and see what happened. And of course, you don't really get another opportunity to enter. It just goes straight back up to the other side. So it turns down. A little bit lower location here. You definitely don't. You got a close outside a new high, but this is not bearish enough. And then you get a second entry here, but again, not real bearish. You might have considered this one because it broke higher and turned and went out the other side, and there's enough room. But notice those matching lows all across there. There's too big a chance it'll bounce right there. And look what happened. It traded down to that and then traded back up. So it tried to bounce. It just didn't because it wasn't quite back to the EMA most likely. And then it bounced there. And you can't go long there. Even though there's a second entry, it's just not bullish enough. It is a failed break lower below all that. But I think you need to wait and see if you get another higher low and a little better entry bar. You do get that higher low here, and look at how that bullish that is, and it actually broke lower and turned and went out the upside. Just go long right there. Of course, your stop has to go below this bar right here. It always has to go below the swing low. Even though this is your signal bar, really, you can't put it there because look, you would have got stopped out. But as long as you put it where it goes below the swing low, it tried to go lower twice and couldn't, and you're able to survive that. There's a breakout pullback long right here. But I wouldn't go long into that. I would wait and see if you don't get a little better entry. And then notice it makes a new high, pull back first entry, pull back second entry. So now you've tested that twice, that level, and you got a nice bullish bar on a second entry. So I like that one for a long. That was a nice move. And they obviously trapped some shorts here. And look at that, because look at that thing shoot up real quick. And then we just start going sideways. I don't have the line across here, across the top, but you can see it. And you actually get a second entry here. And the only reason I like this one, it's right at the EMA, and it's a little failed break lower. And you get your first entry, and then it pulls back, and you get a little lower high. So that's a second entry long there. There's not a lot of room before you get to those highs, so you might want to let it break higher and drop a limit order back in here a tick or so. And you could have gotten filled a couple of ticks back into that. But even if you wanted, you could just about use a stop because this is all moving up here now. This is right off the EMA. There's actually a midline running through there as well. You can kind of see that midline working up through there. It's right along through there. So a lot of times you'll bounce off that midline and get another shot at it to go higher, one more push up. And that's what we got, one more push up. But the main reason I like this one is the failed break lower and the lower high right here in the second entry. And then you start working back. And that's where I want to talk about this one. Okay, I had a slight interruption. We were talking about this trade. It pulls back. There's support here. It had actually moved down by that point. You'd probably be looking at it right here. And we did bounce off of that twice. So it's really tempting to go long there because of this trend line coming up through here. The only thing that could keep you out of this is notice that we're got 3 or 4 bars stacked up. One of them's a doji, so you have to be careful about that because that's a little trading range. And look what happens: we break out and turn down. But the main thing is you got this trend line here, and there's no break of it yet. We don't get a close outside till here, and then we move to a new low, and you get 2 legs down. So you got a second entry long right here back to the EMA. So if you got trapped here, you just gotta exit and take a loss or take a break even or whatever you can get out of it. But that would be the only thing. The clue that there's no break of the trend line. Notice how we shot straight through the EMA, relatively bearish there. That's the start of a reversal pattern, meaning we're probably going to go lower. And then we had the close outside 2 legs down, so that's why I like that one. There's also a measured move here. There's 2 legs in that move, and then there's 2 legs in the second move, and you can see it's a perfect measured move there. And this made a new swing high. It's higher than that swing high. So you're moving down, pull back first entry, moving down second entry. So it's a second entry long, counting off that new high there, and you're a good bit away from the EMA. Plus, it's a retest of this breakout area right here. Nice retest. A lot of different reasons to want to jump on that one and ride it back to the EMA. And you might get lucky and do just what it did, and you get to ride this all the way up. And you can see that trend line just moving higher. And notice how we kept pulling back here, but we never could break lower. It never could even really push through that trend line. That's a good sign. And this was the first break of this 2-tiered channel. So you're looking for prices to at least make a new high, so at least to here. And we end up making another leg up. And I would also be expecting, there's your first leg up. So once we started going higher from here, actually that's not the stem, I would be looking for a measured move from there. And notice that is a perfect measured move to the tick before it sold off. So you're getting multiple areas right in the same location. And generally, that's another thing. Generally, these later, the more recent swings are the more accurate ones. So if you can find a swing in here from here to here versus the one we measured from this longer one on the range, then it's probably going to be more accurate. So just remember that. So, but notice right here, I missed this trade. You made a new high, pull back first entry, pull back second entry, and you're looking for your measured move up here. And you're looking for another measured move here. And even on this shorter one, you're looking for one here, and you haven't made it there yet. So there's several different reasons to consider entering right here. Normally I would probably make this one green, but you got this shorter term trend line working up through there, and it's pretty steep, and it's been a nice move, and it is a second entry. And you actually could treat this. Notice there's a new low here. We never break lower, so that's a first entry, pull back second entry, and it bounced twice back off that trend line. So there's several different reasons I like that trade. But again, in most situations, that would probably be a green entry. But with all those things going for it, there's multiple reasons to want to enter there. So I like that one. And then once we reached that measured move, we just started kind of going sideways. Again, there's another range across here. And you can see it. And look what happened. The first thing that happens is we fell out the top. And Plus you got your break of it and a move to a new high, or a close outside of it and a move to a new high. So there's some reasons to really consider that trade there. If I'd still been trading, I'm guessing I would take that trade. So I'll probably make that one green. It is aggressive. Generally, you're better off to wait on the first entry. But look how far away we are from the EMA. Look how bearish that bar is. And you've had your break of this one and a new high. Two legs up to a new high for that matter. It's a perfect measured move. And you've had this shorter term when you had a break of it and two legs up, two measured legs up to a new high. So there's several different reasons to consider that one. You don't get a second entry counting off the high till here, and that's too bullish right into the EMA. And notice how we just keep going side. Well, actually, we have a failed break lower first, but that's a first entry, not a very good signal bar. And look how we shot right through that EMA. It's too big a chance we reverse there. But then you get a correct. There's actually a failed second entry long right there. Notice that new pull. It's a second entry long counting off the low, which is the way you would probably want to count here. Pull back first entry, pull back second entry. So again, there's another reason to enter that one. But the fact that we were back in that range made it suspect. And look what happened on the bar that broke lower. It bounces right off that low. And then the next one closes in there too. So it may not have ever gone lower here. So you had to be real careful with that about going short. So that's the reason I don't mark that one. It does kind of set the trend line, but I think you got to be a little bit worried with that entry right there and skip it. But when it turns down and you get that measured leg down, notice you got that leg right there, and then you got the little correction in the middle, and then there's your next leg. Another perfect measured move. That's a second entry long. Got your new high, pull back first leg up, and you got a little two-legged correction, then your second leg down. So that's, for all intents and purposes, that's a second entry long, right at the previous trend line. So doesn't surprise me at all that right at this point you're expecting it to probably come back and test this breakout, EMA and breakout, but it just shoots right on through there. And there's a little trap here, but again, I don't think I'd go short there, right into the EMA, right into that support. I think and we're all stacked up there. I think you just skip that one, and that gets you into it would have been a nice trade, but that's one of those that you look at and you say, hey, it's a nice trade, but I followed the rules and I couldn't take it, because most of the time it'll bounce on you if you try to enter there and you're in trouble. So you probably heard me say that before. If you hadn't, make sure you hear that. But just because it worked this time, doesn't mean it's going to work next time. So if you followed the rules and you miss a good trade, so what? You did the right thing, because the next time what'll happen is you'll say, hey, last time that worked. I'm going to forget what the rule is, and I'm going to take it because I don't want to miss another good trade. And then you take it, like right here, thinking and it does this, it bounces on you and stops you out. So follow the rules and don't let a big move that you miss and it goes without you, don't let that upset you. That's just part of trading. So anyway, that's pretty much it for the day. Hope you had a good trading day. I'm going to wrap it up for today. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.